What's good, everybody? It's your boy Ados Picks, and in today's video, I'm coming at you guys with playoff contenders, playoff madness, everything that we're going to see. So it's officially March, right? This is when things start to ramp up a lot. This is when we start to see the standings matter. Teams are jumping one or two spots every night. We're keeping an eye on who's going to finish where. And this year specifically, it feels really, really important, right? Because the league is wide open. Yeah, the Thunder seem to be the heavy betting favorites when you look at it from that perspective, but they're not a 65, game start compared to where they started off. It seems a little wide open. And the Eastern Conference is showing up this year. I'm really happy with what I see out of the Eastern Conference. So I just wanted to hop on here, man, talk a little bit about it. It is early March, so things are starting to ramp up. Instead of having going back to my point there of not having a heavy favorite, it's not like 2017 or, a couple years before that when we knew the Warriors were going to win it. Instead, we have multiple contenders in both conferences, veteran teams trying to make one last push, young teams that are trying to prove they're real, and then got a lot of teams under some pressure to get it done. So the main things we're going to cover in today's video is just breaking down the playoff race, why the standings are so chaotic right now, what teams are rising, and then I want to give you guys some teams that I think are under the most pressure, or a team that I think is under the most pressure to win an NBA championship. So a good starting point for a video where we are going to be talking about the playoffs is the Western Conference, right? If we start with the Western Conference, the biggest takeaway is just how deep the conference is, right? For me, I feel like I counted them out, there's a legit 8 or 9 teams that if you ask them today, they said they think they can make a deep playoff run. If you ask the players, if you ask the people around the team, do you think you guys could get it done? I think 8 or 9 teams could really say that yes to that question. I don't know if I believe all 8 or 9 teams, but it is something to think about, right? And there's a wild gap, right? So 1 and 2 seed are pretty locked up, right? And they may flip. If you watch my last video, I said the Spurs might win the 1 seed going into the postseason. That's something to watch out for. But 1 and 2 are pretty locked in. The Rockets are 3 right now, and they're 8 games back from the 1 seed, 5 games back from San Antonio. They could make a push, but I also said in my last video, they're on the downslope. So 1 and 2 is pretty locked up. We'll see OKC and San Antonio finish 1 and 2. But that's when things start to get wild, is after that. There's a wild gap between 3 and the play-in, and it's one bad week, you lose 4 games in a row, you could go from the 5 seed all the way down to the play-in, which is just scary to think about. So, suddenly losing a couple games, you're in the play-in, that's a massive difference because the seeding is going to matter so much in this year's playoffs, right? If you finish, top 3 or 4, you might get a more favorable matchup with Phoenix Suns or Clippers or someone like that. But once you get past that 3 range, that 4 range, you start talking about playing legitimate titles contenders immediately. But on the flip side, if you finish 3 to 4, you might end up playing LeBron James and Luka Doncic. It's a complete bloodbath in the West right now. Very, very cool. To see it. It's fun to watch. All these games are starting to mean more despite all the tanking teams and the teams that want AJ DeBansta and Peterson and whatnot. But start to see some of these veteran teams like Curry heat up late. I don't know if the Warriors will make it. I talked about that in my last video. Definitely a great video. My last one was cool. We talked about betting and props and stuff, but it was a great video. Check that one out. Anyways, LeBron James, Luka Doncic, not a team you want to see first round no matter who you are. They're going to give you some trouble. Anthony Edwards, he's got a chip on his shoulder. The way Ant plays is insane. That Timberwolves team is solid. I don't know if I consider them one of my top tier contenders, but it's a team you don't want to play, especially if Anthony Edwards is coming out there trying to play like Michael Jordan. It's going to be fun, man. It's going to feel like musical chairs moving down the stretch, and where these teams end up is just going to be very, very important because some of these teams have non-favorable matchups and teams you don't want to see in the first or second round, right? You want to try to make a push to the Western Conference. You want to try to avoid some of these teams. Like if you're OKC for whatever reason, you don't want to end up playing the Spurs in the second round, right? If you do and you lose, there's a lot of talking points to be had about that. So, that's just one random example I can think of. But we'll flip gears to the Eastern Conference now, which I think has quietly become one of the, it's been loaded, right? It doesn't get talked about as much as the West because the West is so deep. There's a lot more superstar players out in the West. And for a long time, the East was basically dominated, by the same couple teams for a few years. Or every year they're dominated for a while, right? So this year I feel like you got multiple teams that can come out of the Eastern Conference. Boston, Cleveland, Detroit. The list goes on and on, right? Who else? Toronto would be 4. Am I missing somebody? I don't know. I can't think. Let me just pull up the standings instead of trying to do it off memory. Let me see what we got for the standings. Oh, the Knicks. I was missing the Knicks, New York. And then there's teams that are going to be tough playoff matches, especially when healthy, like the Sixers and the Heat. The Hornets are playing some of the best basketball right now. So it's deep, right? It's not as good as the Western Conference, no doubt, but it's deep. And there's some teams that if you're a top seed, you don't want to see, So another one that a lot of people got their eyes on right now is the Cleveland Cavaliers, right? The Cleveland Cavaliers have built a roster now that is winning games and doing a lot better. Bringing in James Harden has made them not only better offensively, but also better defensively as well. And I think they're built to do well in the playoffs. But I also don't know if if they land a Toronto in the first round, based on what I've seen from Cleveland, they might not make it out of that first round. But I don't know. That kind of, for me, they have a high defensive ceiling when fully healthy between Mobley and Jared Allen. And then you have James Harden and Mitchell starting to gel very nicely. But I tell people all the time, making these big moves, like superstar splashes in the middle of the season, for someone like James Harden, doesn't always work out. And I don't know if it's going to work out. I was selling on the Cavs when they made the move. So I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of the Cavs, but that kind of brings me into my point, right? Well, before I get into the rest of the Cavs, I'll talk about the rest of the Eastern Conference. So when thinking about Detroit, the only thing I can think of is they've never been anywhere like this. They've never made it this far. They've never had a chance to have playoff experience, and you're led by really young guys in Cade and Jalen Duran. So that would be a gripe I have about Detroit, and it really kind of is a massive one. Playoff experience is huge. New York, my gripe about them is I just don't know. They're so inconsistent. You don't know what you're going to get from the Knicks night in and night out, and it just... it's also the Knicks. They have a history of not getting the job done. And we see that year in and year out, especially when they're a good basketball team. So hard for me to believe in New York. If I had to, I would say Boston is my favorite out of the East right now, especially when they get Tatum back. They were a big topic of our last video, so my thoughts are floating around in there. But let's go ahead and talk about the team that's under the most pressure right now. I think it is Cleveland. I think of a Cleveland team, and I think of... I was watching ESPN the other day, and this was a question of who was the most pressured to win a chip. And Stephen A. and Kendrick Perkins, they said Cleveland. And it was hard for me to not agree with them. And one of the things that they said on there was the fact that Cleveland has done more for Donovan Mitchell than they've done for LeBron James. And at first it was kind of like, what are they talking about? But then I think about it, and they have given Donovan Mitchell everything he's needed to contend. And he specifically might be going into the playoffs this year under the most pressure to perform in the playoffs. Him and James Harden, who have historically not performed well in the playoffs, might be under the most pressure to perform in this upcoming playoffs. And it's because the Cleveland Cavaliers have done more for Donovan Mitchell than they ever did for LeBron James. And that's saying a lot. On the same flip side of things, though, and you could go back and forth on this argument, but LeBron James didn't need as much to perform as well as he did with the Cavaliers, especially in his early stint with them when he started his career, right? Donovan Mitchell obviously needs more to contend than LeBron James does, but why not give LeBron James more anyways? So it's just a lot to think about there, but that is a very strong point. And they traded for James Harden at the deadline, man. They got rid of a young guard in Garland, who obviously outside of injuries was not a bad basketball player. But they made a move like that at the deadline. I think it's a good team, but they need to prove it to people, because the reality in the NBA is that these championship windows that you're trying to create are not going to stay open forever. Contracts are going to change. People are going to get older. People are going to request trades. Front offices have to make difficult decisions. And if you're Cleveland and you have all this stress on your shoulders, and you don't perform again this year, and you get out in the first or second round, it's just going to bring nothing but bad things and speculation around Donovan Mitchell's long-term future, the front office, did they make the right moves? But on the other side of things, if you go deep in the playoffs and you shut these people up, including people like me who are saying you're not going to do it, that changes everything. So it's just, I think Cleveland is under a lot of pressure. Another team that I think is under a lot of pressure, we'll flip to the west side, and I don't have as much on Denver, but it's it's Denver that I think is under the most pressure. And I say that because I don't know, they took OKC to 7 last year. And no one's doubting Nikola Jokic, but Nikola Jokic is not young. Like, Nikola Jokic wasn't one of these guys that came in the league at, a super young age, right? I think Nikola Jokic, I'm checking now, is 31 years old. Yeah, 31 years old Nikola Jokic is. So they don't have all the time in the world, man. Like, Jokic, too, you got to think, not super locked in on basketball. Like, once you get into these late runs, man, he starts talking about those horses a lot more. Now, I think they're built for playoff basketball, and Jokic is an offensive engine that will not go away. But you can't keep letting injuries be the reason you don't win or things of that nature. And that's what's happening to the Nuggets right now is they're injured and not performing well. The Nuggets are in trouble, man. They're another team that I think is under a lot of pressure right now. The easy answer is the Cleveland Cavaliers. If I had to give you a second one that's under a lot of pressure to perform well, it would be the Denver Nuggets. All in all, man, it's going to be a great playoff race. Early March, man, we start to fade into that March Madness. We start to fade into who's going to play who in the playoffs, man. This is really when hoop starts to pick up and ramp up and take off. So it's going to be fun. We get to enjoy Steph Curry maybe in the playoffs again. LeBron James in the playoffs, Luka Doncic, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. We get to, it's just so amazing to see these teams and the young guys and the old guys clash in the playoffs. And I can't wait for postseason basketball, man. So when you take a step back and look at the league, it feels kind of unpredictable. You can say OKC and San Antonio might flip after that. Who's going to be the 3 through 8 seed? Who's going to make the play in? The East has multiple contenders, man. There's not a single team out East that can't beat the other one in a 7-game series. It's going to be pretty fun to watch the out East basketball. So the next few weeks are going to determine home court advantage, who actually gets a real path to the finals. Let me know what you guys think down below, man. If you guys are locked in, made it this far in the video, I appreciate you guys. I say that every video, but it does mean a lot if you guys watch the whole thing. It's me just talking hoops. Let me know down below, man. Drop a comment if you made it this far in the video, and let me know who you got winning the chip, or if there's a team that you think is under the most pressure to get it done. Yeah, man, that's all I got for today's video. Appreciate you guys once again. Thanks for checking it out. Peace out.